Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Thought Leadership Thursday. On Thought Leadership Thursday, I interview thought leaders in the baking industry, and I bring them on to share their views on this industry. Today, we have Tanya Jeradechachai, our expert today on fibers. Tanya is the new Vice President of R&D at MGP. And MGP, as some of us know it, is the supplier of specialty wheat proteins and starch ingredients. Tanya, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Tanya, where did you get your education from?
Oh, yeah, Northern State University. Yeah, I got my bachelor and master in food and cereal science from NSU. Yeah.
All right. So you know your cereals, is that correct?
I'm a cereal chemist.
Proteins, functionality. Great. And what do you do at MGP?
Yeah, so I'm the new Vice President of Ingredient Solutions R&D at MGP. I just joined the company 4 months ago. So December 1st was my first day.
Welcome.
Yeah.
This is not your first time in the cereal industry, right?
No, yeah. Before this, I was at a flour milling company. Yeah.
Okay.
Doing commercializing new ingredients, namely high malose wheat. Did a lot of method development around dietary fiber, carbohydrate biochemistry, rheology, baking, milling, all these process and method development. So,
well, as a member of the baking community, welcome to the baking community.
Thank you.
We need experts like you here to help us along the new trends. We've got so many trends to talk about. We've got the vegan, we got the keto, we got clean label, right? So these trends that are coming on strong, especially this year, require specialty functional ingredients. So could you tell us or share with us what are your ideas on baking keto with say something like wheat proteins?
Sure. You know, and keto, I find it so much fun. It's like you're going back isn't it? It's like you're going back to school and then reading about fractionation and reconstitution studies, like how you blend different type of wheat protein together to get the functionality that you're looking for. And then blending the starch, different type of starch, and trying to get to what you're looking for in the bread. But for keto,
so this is the first time I'm hearing that term. What do you call it? Reconstitution technology?
Yeah. So reconstitution.
Interesting. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Sure. So in like a lot of studies in reconstitution, you fractionate the one wheat flour, you fractionate into different fractions of protein, starch, other lipid compounds or something. And then for you to understand how each fraction works, you kind of combine it back. So you combine this wheat protein with different type of starch, for example. You're combining this variety of wheat lipids with this variety and see the effect. So I look at keto baking as a reconstitution study, and it's just a lot of fun.
That makes a lot of sense. I have never heard of it that way, but that's because keto is so new, right? It's like nobody really knows much about this area of baking because like what you say, it's actually, putting things back together again, right? The only thing we cannot put back together again is the carbohydrate part or too much of that carbohydrate part, right? Yeah. So what I'm learning is, all right, we know what's the function of protein. We know what's the function of carbohydrate. We know what's the function of lipids. So we need to just work with this too and try to figure out how to not work with that, right? So can you share with us what kind of products that we could use from your company to help us make this two fraction, the protein and the lipid fraction, work for us, or the fiber? And how does those ingredient affect the rheology and the volume of, say, something like a pan bread? Because at the end of the day, if you don't use the right ones, you aren't going to get the right volume, and you're not going to get the right texture.
You're exactly right. So now we're going to focus on a wheat-based keto formulations. Okay.
Yes.
The goals for keto baking is really to eliminate any type of starch or glucose or sugar in the formulations, right? That's how you get the keto or really low net carb. And they do that by increasing the protein amount in the formulations and replacing all the starch with fiber component. And then what we have on the protein part, we have wheat protein isolate, which is made from wheat gluten that has been purified many times to get the protein up to 90. So if you look at the normal wheat gluten, it has about 75% protein. The isolate has around 90% protein. So
wow.
That's help boosting the amount of protein in the keto bread. And also the wheat protein isolate have what we have are the Arise products, and they have unique functionality, like providing the elasticity and the extensibility in the bread. So, bucky bread, bucky dough that has too much elasticity. You need some of that relaxer to help it flow, to help it works in the mixer. So we use blends of different type of protein isolate to get that functionality of gluten.
So if we were to call MGP, what would those proteins, what would those be called? Because we can't ask for vital wheat gluten because vital wheat gluten has only one functionality and it bulks up everything.
Yeah.
What do they call those proteins at MGP?
Yeah, so we call it, we have a few numbers, Arise 5,000, 6,000, 8,000. We usually blend these proteins together to get that. So, and then we have the clean label version of these, which are Arise 100 and 200. And we can help you picking the right type of Arise for the application that people are looking for. Yeah.
Interesting. And when it comes to fiber, what kind of fiber do you use?
Oh, thank you for that question. So, what we have here, there are actually many type of fiber out there. What considers that their fiber are the carbohydrate compound that that indigestible in our small intestine, and it's completely or partially fermented in colon. That's what we call fiber. And that's, you're talking about, I don't know how many compounds or ingredients that you can use, but many of them will be limited because of how it functions in bread. Just like you can't add so much cellulose in the bread, and then the dough wouldn't work anymore because the amount of water it requires, right? But what we have here at MGP is a fibersome, which is the resistant starch type 4. So it's a wheat starch that has been modified with phosphate. So we cross-link that starch with phosphate to make it resist our digestion.
Okay.
It sounds like.
So is there a functionality within the dough rheology, or there's no functionality in dough rheology for that part?
So does function in the starch type 4, if you look under microscope, it actually looks like native starch. This fibers that look exactly native starch. You look under the SEM, it also looks like native starch. What it functions differently is the low water holding capacity than the normal wheat starch. So really low, and that's why you can actually add quite a bit of resistant starch type 4 into it. And
so yeah, let me just explain this for the lay baker out there who's not really very familiar with the term native starch, because a lot of them never worked with starch before. And when you say starch, a lot of them equate it to modified cornstarch. And usually when I use cornstarch in my dough, it sucks up all the water, right? So when you talk about native starch, it looks like acts like a native starch, this fibersome, right? You're saying that it's more like it's more like a powder that has no effect in water absorption, so it won't mess up the mixing, right?
Yes.
My other question too is because we in the baking industry usually use oat fiber or very similar fibers that we have to actually pull aside and rehydrate first before we use it. Yeah. I mean, do we have to do something different with FiberSim?
No. So FiberSim is really easy. It acts like, so what we do is just combining the FiberSim with Arise together. And now you're going to have almost like a flour that acts like normal wheat flour in the keto bake, which I'm really fortunate to get to work with these just amazing ingredients to work with. But I should mention to you, when we talk about modification and the chemical cross-linking, it sounds really sciencey and it sounds bad, but phosphate is a compound really abundant in nature. It's even in our DNA, if you think about it. And the amount in it is only 0.4% of the phosphate in the starch. But that amount is enough to help us reach this resistant starch or dietary fiber that can be used in keto baking. And Dr. Odie, our Chief Science Officer, has done so much work on clinical trials and human studies on showing the benefit of this resistant starch. And this is not as a well-known fact for FiberSim, but we have done numerous.
What would those benefits be in terms of health?
Sure. So let me give you some background information. For the FDA has put more stricter guidelines on what can be called dietary fiber. Some fibers that we thought it was fiber in the past, many of them are no longer fiber or recognized as fiber by the FDA. So there's the intrinsic and intact fiber. That's one. So these are fibers that's inherent in the fruits and vegetables and the grains that we use. Or another type is isolated and synthetic fibers. There are many of them available. But for the fiber to be recognized by FDA, you have to prove the physiological evidence that the fiber have benefits to human health. So, and Dr. Odie has done so much work on showing that benefit. So we got approval by the FDA that resistant starch type 4 is now the FDA approved fiber. So the benefit that we showed the FDA was the ability of FiberSim to lower the postprandial insulin after a meal. So it's a great study. We did 4 clinical studies to show that, to show the FDA. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And does it affect provide other health benefit, like say anything to do with cholesterol or blood, heart disease?
Yeah. So we did 3 human study. Trying to remember. 4 studies on blood glucose level. So it does help reduce the blood glucose after meal, help reduce the blood cholesterol. The 2 human study and 1 hamster study on that with the South Dakota State University. And gut health trend is so big. And we did 2 human studies showing the benefit of the FiberSim on the fermentation and short chain fatty acid production in our colon. Another human study on gut microbiota. So
interesting.
Lots of studies that we have done.
And we do have a segment of the population that actually, the more I find out, the more bigger I find out this population is that is suffering from IBS.
Yeah.
Would someone with IBS consume this particular fiber and suffer from it?
Thank you. Yes. So there are a few fibers that should not be consumed by IBS. So this FiberSim is low FODMAP certified by Monash University. Okay. So it's actually really a friendly ingredient for IBS people with IBS. Sorry. Mm-hmm. So let me talk about FODMAPs. So that's the fermentable oligo
di.
I
just get lost there too.
Di mono polyols. So these are the compounds that are not as friendly to IBS people.
And IBS, if those of you are not familiar with that term, it's irritable bowel syndrome, and it affects the intestines, and it really gives a lot of people bloated, allergic feeling to something like a gluten product or inulin or something like that. And so my question to you, if I was a baker and I developed a keto product using your Arise and using a FiberSim, would I be able to claim a low FODMAP?
Yeah. So, and this is a trickier question. So the FiberSim is approved as a low FODMAP ingredient. Arise is not yet approved. And then I think to get the low FODMAP claim on the product has to go through the certification as well.
Correct.
So the products has to go through their certification.
Okay.
But FiberSim is one of the ingredients that can be used. Yeah.
Okay. Just my thought, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because the whole wheat flour, right? Whole wheat flour or the regular all-purpose flour that you use has higher FODMAPs.
Yes,
right?
Correct. Yes.
But when you actually characterize and isolate the proteins and the starch and the fibers, whatever, you actually remove that FODMAP part. So your Arise
should have
your Arise might be low FODMAP, right?
Yes, it should be. Yeah.
Someone just need to go look into that certification for that.
That's
so
exactly correct.
If you're a baker and you're a developer and you're thinking, hey, I can hit keto and low FODMAP, I can kill two birds with one stone. Why not?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because we've just had so many people reach out to us and say, we are allergic to this, we're allergic to that. Could you look into IBS, foods that are more safe for IBS? So I think that's coming. And I really think that you guys are ready.
We are, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to thank you for coming on with me today. It's been a delight learning about what you do. You've been there for less than 4 months, and you already know everything about the studies that's going on, right?
A lot to learn yet. I want to thank you and your team for what you do, for making all these information available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So one more thing before we end, and I always like to end my Thought Leadership Thursday with asking you, what are your leadership tips? What do you think is a best advice for someone who is trying to grow professionally?
Never stop. Never stop.
Never stop learning, never stop growing.
Never stop. Just never stop. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And just go out and do your tests, right?
Yeah.
Your first keto product is not probably gonna look great.
Yeah.
But keep trying.
Yes. Never stop.
Yeah. All right, Tanya. This is such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.